Hello, and welcome to Alive or Just Blethering, a podcast where two 30-somethings discuss the music we found and loved growing up. My name is Keith McLeod, and with me is my fellow host, Chris Lavender. Today on Alive or Just Blethering, I'll be taking us through The Origin of Symmetry by Muse.
Hello Keith, how are you doing today?
I am good, Lav. How are you? And how are our listeners today?
I know, I'm actually really stunned. Another country appeared on the analytics, Venezuela. Hello Venezuela.
Viva Venezuela! If that's the correct thing to say, I didn't even look that up, I just said it. So if that's insulting, I do apologise.
We'll find out, I'm sure.
Is it Viva? Is it Spanish? Is it Portuguese?
I'm not going to even begin to claim that I know. But yeah, thank you everyone for listening, and thank you for coming back if you've listened to us before. And if you're new here, drop us a like, drop us a comment, say hello. AOGB podcast.
Tell us your views on the music we've covered so far and why we're probably wrong. I need to pick up on something I said in the last... Was it the last podcast? It was the last podcast. And I referred to the Dunblane shootings as 1997. It was 1996. I'm sure I get a lot wrong, but that's one thing I really wanted to correct. It was 96 that the UK got rid of guns.
Thank you for that correction. Yeah, that was on the POD episode where we talked about gun crime and active shooter incidents. So this one's going to be a bit different, I think, going into Muse.
Funnily enough, it's if POD was about religion, Origin of Symmetry is perhaps about not religion and potentially disproving religion, which wasn't intentional. I really just discovered that as I looked into this album and did my research on that.
I think it's cool that we're going in a bit of a different direction. I mean, this is definitely our first non-nu metal album. Going to be flexing our genre muscles on this one, are we?
Absolutely. So, we're not intentionally a nu metal podcast. We've just, and I think we've said it before, we're just starting off where we started listening to music, and we're going to cover like older Metallica stuff and Rage Against the Machine is from the 90s and stuff, but we decided we made a joint decision. We'll kick off with Linkin Park, and so we've been surrounded by nu metal, but I didn't just listen to nu metal when I was 15 years old. I also listened to stuff like Muse. So here we are, our first non-nu metal album. What's we've not really talked a lot about Muse in the past. What's been your thoughts?
I'll be straight up and honest with you, Keith. I was never a Muse fan. I maybe enjoyed the odd track that got released, the singles that were out there in the videos, but I never had a Muse album. I never really gave them more than a track's worth of a listen. So listening to Origin of Symmetry this last week has been quite the eye-opener, actually, and somewhat regret not giving them the time that they rightly deserve. So,
a positive eye-opening experience, shall we say?
Oh, without a shadow of a doubt. This has been a really nice listen, and it's reminded me of music I did listen to around this time as well, which, for better or for worse, we'll bring up at the end of this episode, because that's going to be the next lead in.
I feel I've influenced you for your next decision, and I'm a bit like blasé about your next decision, but we'll cover that next week.
Yeah, we will. But yeah, I was really impressed by it, actually. Considering how much I now listen to progressive music, I would say my eyes have been a lot more open to progressive music since listening to bands like Between the Bird and Me, maybe going into more genty bands like Tesseract and Periphery, and they've got sort of those progressive elements in them, and I can hear a lot of Muse in them. So it's nice to kind of come back and listen to a band that were of a time when we were young, and it was probably more relevant, I suppose, to our, or your tastes at least, when they were being built up.
If we ever cover Between the Buried and Me or Periphery, I will be utterly heartbroken to find out that they were influenced by Muse. Not because I don't want them to be influenced by Muse, but because of what Muse eventually became. Like, if they can, like, I don't listen to Muse anymore. I could not keep up with them after maybe 1 or 2 albums ago, 3 albums ago. I think that the last album I really listened to was Black Holes and Revelations, and whatever came after that, I just gave it one listen, and I've never been back, because you have a record like Origin of Symmetry, which I haven't listened to in properly in maybe at least 10 years, and I've came back to it now, and I'm like, fucking hell, this is brilliant. Like, this is a great album for so many reasons. It's like, I have flaws with it, because they are potentially my flaws that exist with Muse, that I didn't initially gravitate towards Muse. I didn't initially think Muse were amazing straight out the gate. I kind of was persuaded into them by like one of my best friends, and we'll get onto that. But you've got Origin of Symmetry, and then they've gone down a path that, you know, similar to Padme and Anakin, I just couldn't follow. They were breaking my heart. Like, it was awful. So
as the last song, I'm trying to remember what the last song that I remember being like on the radio, not on the radio, I don't listen to the radio, but just like in the general kind of populace.
What was the last song you listened to in the headphones of HMV?
It wouldn't have gone that far. It would have been well after they were doing those. I'm trying to think. It was probably off The Resistance. They must have had, what was the big track off that album, The Resistance? Was that Uprising? Was it that one?
Yeah, I think it was.
Or was it the song Resistance?
It might have been United States of Eurasia.
I don't know. And this is where my hands are up, being completely honest with you, Keith. I had so little interest in Muse that I could listen to a greatest hits album and it would be absolutely fine, and I wouldn't be able to spot the difference. Going into Origin of Symmetry is the first time I've listened to a Muse album properly for a long time, and it was very, very good.
Any highlights off the top of your dome?
Definitely the nostalgia of Newborn. As soon as that started,
yeah,
I was like, this is banging, this is great. Citizen Erased, I think, is a really top song. I think you set me a challenge last week. Can't remember if it was recorded or not, but you set me a challenge to spot the song with the 7-string.
Mm-hmm.
Did I get it right, Keith?
Well, what do you think was the song with the 7-string?
It was definitely Citizen Erased.
Fuck yeah, it was Citizen Erased. That was that's an A, that song.
Oh,
so yeah. he Bellamy plays the 7-string on it, and he's got the low A, and it's fat as fuck. Like, yeah, congratulations, challenge. You won it.
I win nothing. I have nothing. I have no prizes.
Well, you win my respect for identifying the fact that that's a 7-string. But of course it's a 7-string, because it's just a big fat open A, and it just rings out throughout a 7-minute song. It's wonderful.
It was great. And then all the songs that got released, it was I never realized how many songs were actually put out there on videos. So I'm considering one of them was a double, was it not?
Yep.
So you've got a double.
Hyper
so
Music,
five tracks got videos effectively.
There'd been 5 videos. It was Hyper Music and Feeling Good were the double, but those videos were very similar. They probably were shot on the same day / same set, or over the same couple of days. I don't know that for a fact. I'm just sort of reaching on that. But yeah, Hyper Music and Feeling Good were the sort of last songs released in 19th November 2001, and yeah, before that you had it opened with, the first release was Plug In Baby, then Newborn, then Bliss.
Bliss was again all this memories. If before last week, if you'd asked me to name the songs on Origin of Symmetry that I knew, I would have probably just said Newborn and maybe Plug-in Baby. And then it's going through, I'm like, oh yeah, Feeling Good was on here. Oh yeah, Hyper Music was, oh yeah, Bless was on this. And it was a really, really nice trip down memory lane. And it probably highlighted to me that maybe Origin of Symmetry had a bit more of an impact on me than I first questioned.
Origin of Symmetry was definitely where I came on to Muse. Maybe if I was being honest with myself, I sort of preferred Absolution, which was the album to follow. You know, that had Time Is Running Out, Hysteria. Like, Hysteria probably stands as one of my favourite songs ever. But we're not talking about our favourite albums, we're talking about where we found these bands and this music and where we went with it. So it was absolutely Origin of Symmetry. So let's get into some guts of some deets.
Tell me
I'll
about
drop
it.
some deets on the album. And we'll take it from there. So for anyone who doesn't know, maybe in Venezuela or Germany or Oregon, if you're not aware, Muse are an English rock band from Tynemouth, Devon. Have I pronounced that right? Tynemouth. Teaguemouth? I think it's Tynemouth. We'll go with Tynemouth.
Down south.
Very down south. Devon, mate. Devon.
That's real south. That's a real south.
Yep. Formed in 1994, the band consists of Matt Bellamy, lead vocals, guitar, keyboards. I've always fucking struggled with this guy's surname. Wolstenholme? Holm. Bassist. And drummer Dominic Howard. Origin of Symmetry is the second album by Muse, released on 17th of July 2001 through Mushroom Records and Taste Media. So we are it is their 20th anniversary, 2001. We're in 2021. We're coming up on their 20th anniversary, and they just so happened to drop a wonderful nugget on that, and it was they've re-released Citizen Erased.
It sounds brilliant. I'm not gonna say no. It sounds really, really good. There's some really nice, cleaned up parts. Anytime these remasters come out, I'm always very, very hesitant to be like it's better. Because I like to kind of compare and contrast. We've brought up Between the Bird and Me earlier. They do remixes. They've been doing remixes of their albums for the last 2 years, I believe, where they've just gone through the whole lot of them, and they are a marked improvement. Whether they've re-recorded or they've laid down new ones, great. But
you're saying remix, or do you mean a remaster?
Well, this is it. What's the difference?
To me, a remix is a different song. It's like one artist taking an existing song and remixing it, putting out their interpretation of that song. A remaster would be the original band or someone coming along and taking the original tracks and remixing them and remastering them.
Well, these Between the Bird and Me ones, they're called remixes, but they just sound like they were made yesterday. They just sound really, really clean, really up to date, well balanced, and just really, all the parts kind of reimagined. So I guess you could say we've upped the levels on the guitar. We re-recorded the drums on this track. Is that a remix? Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's probably. If I'm being honest, it is more like a remaster. They've not changed anything. Nothing new has been added musically. But by the sounds of things on Citizen Erased, at least, it sounds like there's some additional backing strings in there.
I think there's some additional strings. They've definitely re-recorded some of the guitar parts. The bass distortion is different. What I can't tell is, did they re-record that, or did they remaster the existing one? Because the existing one, sort of similar to your tone on Newborn, is way raspier, way rougher. Sort of listening to it, I kind of think more of like a saw wave, like on a whatever scope. Whereas this sounds more like a buzz, which ironically is probably still a saw wave, but like it's smoother, it's cleaner.
To me, that's compression, and I'm wondering if is it just a case where they have over compressed it. They've done that thing. I think I
maybe
briefly brought up the the Loudness War. If anyone's ever read into it, look it up on YouTube. It's a case where overcompression has been sort of the norm on pop music since the mid-80s, to try and make people's songs sound louder on the radio. But now radio's not so much a thing, so have they dialed it back a bit? Is the Loudness War over? But to me, I think they've done the right thing. They've made it sound new and exciting, but it's still the same music that you listened to 20 years ago.
To me, it sounds like this would be Citizen Erased if they recorded it today. They've not drastically altered it in any way. That guitar tone after the sort of the first heavy chorus, and the song sort of dies down and it gets into that sort of guitar arpeggio, that picking bit. I would say that's quite different, but the rest of it all sounds very similar. I think they maybe brought the drums forward a bit in the mix, so it sounds more like they would have done that song today. I don't necessarily prefer it. I'll take it for what it is, but Citizen Race is my favourite song on the album, and nothing will ever change that. So this is just a slightly different version to that.
Yeah, so that's something exciting. I'm loving this. This is now the fourth album that we've done. At least the third one. Sorry, the third album we've done now that has had a 20th anniversary release.
Honestly, we didn't even plan this for the podcast, but we're bloody well lucking out by picking music from 20 years ago.
Just so happens. Wonder what's next. Let's see.
I'll tell you what's next. The title derives from the 1994 book Hyperspace, this is going to fucking kill me, by the theoretical physicist Michio Kaku. K-A-K-U. Michio, M-I-C-H-I-O. Michio Kaku.
You absolutely butchered that, mate.
Thanks very much. Digging deep because it's going to get worse. Which suggests the title, The Origin of Symmetry, for a future book about the discovery of supersymmetry, a reference to On the Origin of Species.
All right, yeah.
By your old mate Charlie D.
Interesting. Okay.
According to Matt Bellamy, quote, everyone's been writing about the origin of life, so now they'll start looking at the origin of symmetry. There's a certain amount of stability in the universe, and to find out where it originates from would be to find out if God exists.
I mean, okay, we get you. We get it, Muse, you're a space rock band.
Matt Bellamy, who I have sort of followed over the years, even to the later albums, as much as I maybe didn't follow those albums, I was still like, what is he doing here? And the guy is very much into whatever the fuck I just said.
you everything you just said, you just read it, you didn't read it, you didn't actually interpret it, you just read what you saw.
There's symmetry in nature. I suppose a positive and a negative, a yin and yang thing going on there. So, is that by design or is that a natural occurrence, I think is what they're trying to find out.
Alrighty. Okay, cool. So that's the name of the album. What about anything on the artwork? It's one of those album covers that you could take the band name and the album name off and I could recognize it. It was very, very stand out.
Very, very recognisable. Not a lot on the artwork itself. It's by an artist called William Eager, who, to me, in my unlearned ways, appears to be an illustrator. Not to be confused with the Irish painter William H. Eager.
All right.
Born 1766.
I doubt it was him.
Definitely not him. William Eager does have a Instagram with, considering this guy did a Muse album cover, 806 followers. It's more followers than we have, so if anyone wants to jump on AOG podcast Instagram, give us a follow. But if anyone wants to follow William, it's william.eager, and you can see some of his illustrations there.
I like what they did on again, just to kind of go back to the 20th anniversary remix that they're doing. I like the look of the artwork, the metal.
Yeah.
So those like prongs, what would you call them? I think they look like tuning forks.
Yep.
Or American goalposts, whatever you want to call them. But they've made those like metallic.
Yep.
I
And
like that.
they've textured it and they've sort of given the ground like sort of a bit more of a rocky sort of plane and stuff. Like, yeah, no, it looks pretty cool. I'm saying he's an illustrator. I'm actually looking at his work now. It's not just illustrations. There's paintings, but this is a music podcast, not an art podcast.
He's an
or
artist.
is it an art podcast?
Music is art. Music is art.
Is it? Is it really? Fuck, we're getting deep on today's episode.
It's good. I like it.
Yeah, so that's the meaning of the album apparently. And like I've watched Matt Bellamy over the years, and especially with my mate Dave. Hi Dave, I know you're listening to this, but you know he's a quirky sort of sci-fi kind of guy, and I suppose that's almost what sort of brought me into Muse as well. Is you actually see that they're just sort of three normal dudes from
South.
Tynemouth in Devon, and the guy can absolutely shred a guitar or a piano, or drop some fat bass lines. Or does Dominic stand out as a particularly sensational drummer? Maybe not, but I think he's still pretty good.
You know what? For a 3-piece, I think they sound brilliant.
100%.
I think that's what stands out to me whenever you see like how many people are in a band, because they've just got such a broad tone to them. Even on Origin of Symmetry, I know I'm looking at like other Muse songs out there, like Night to Sidonia sounds like it could be like a 16-piece band doing that, because it's just so big and epic and there's so much going on in that song. But then you go to Origin of Symmetry, where it's probably the most straightforward songs, but still with like songs like Plug-in Baby, Feeling Good. They've clearly got the big band in there for that one, because it's just got so much going into it.
They do currently have 2 touring musicians. So while Muse themselves exist as the 3-piece, they do have 2 touring musicians in the shape of Morgan Nichols, covering guitars, keyboards, synthesizers, backing vocal samples, bass, blah blah, and Alessandro Cortini, keyboards and synthesizers. Okay. So while Muse exists as a 3-piece, they make the noise of at least a 5-piece.
Yeah,
or at least they do today. That might not always have been the case back in the day. But if you even look at one of their live albums called Harp, which they released round about Black Holes and Revelations 2006, 2008. Christ, I'm putting my tinfoil hat on here, but
Isn't Harp the weather generator
conspiracy?
Yes!
Fucking yes, it is! Bellamy eats this shit up for breakfast. So the if you even see their stage show from, I think it was, oh Christ, what's the English football ground? What's the one in London? What's
Wembley.
The main one? Thank
Wembley.
you. They played Wembley. And if you look at the stage show from Wembley, like the harp aerials are sort of reflected in like the sort of stage design. And for anyone who doesn't know, go look up the conspiracy theory behind harp, where it is essentially a weather control device, and people were sort of looking into the formations of strange clouds, and then all of a sudden there's an earthquake in China, or there's a bloody tornado in like Brazil, like and all that sort of stuff.
Harp's brilliant. Harp is brilliant because it stands for High Frequency Active Oral Research Program. And
thank you for Googling that.
I've got the Wikipedia page up, but I don't need to look any further. So basically, the thing is, the amount of energy that all harp is, if you ever saw it in a picture of it, it's just loads of little aerials.
In Alaska.
It's high up north, pointing up, because it's researching. They're researching the ionosphere.
So they're not lav. They're controlling the weather, man. They're fucking controlling the weather.
There are no power stations near
controlling the weather.
This research center. The amount of power they would need to generate a cloud. Just a cloud, not even... Yeah.
Come on, man, this is America. They've got it.
It's bonkers.
Got it. It's all underground bunkers. It's in Cheyenne Mountain.
Anyway, look up the Harp Project, make your own mind up.
It's not Origin of Symmetry, that's for bloody sure. Interestingly, it was released on 2 labels, Taste Media and Mushroom Records. You know anything about these guys?
I've not heard of those 2, no.
Okay, Taste Media Taste Media recorded 3 of Muse's albums, Showbiz, Origin of Symmetry, and Absolution. Whilst the recordings by Muse were licensed to Mushroom Records in the United Kingdom, with the label credit being split between Taste Media and Mushroom. I don't understand what that means. The music was licensed to Mushroom Records, but it was recorded with Taste Media.
So it's almost like Mushroom gave Taste the money
to record for Muse.
Yeah, and then they would split or divide up the takings in some manner or form.
Taste don't seem to have been particularly big. There's only a few artists credited to them, one being Muse, another being Shed 7, and another being 1 Minute Silence.
Oh, there's a name I've not heard for a long time.
Nearly broke your neck turning around to that one, yeah. 1 Minute Silence.
Wow. I know that I've just taken a quick look up on Mushroom. They've got some names to their repertoire.
Mushroom Records. Mushroom Records was an Australian flagship record label founded in 1972 in Melbourne. It published and distributed many successful Australian artists and expanded internationally until it was merged with Festival Records in 1998. Festival Mushroom Records was later acquired by Warner Brothers, blah, 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 and so basically the label folded in 2010 into Warner Brothers. But artists from Mushroom Records include Nelly Furtado, Peter Andre, Jason Bloody Donovan, Home and Away Mate,
and both the Minogues.
Oh, were the Minogues on it as well? Fuck, I didn't see them.
Both but Danny and Kylie are on Mushroom. Basically, all the stereotypical Australian. We haven't got any Australian listeners. We'll change that.
Yeah.
But
all the shit the UK people would just absolutely hoover up with a Henry Hoover, bloody Henry Hoover, mate.
Interestingly, really interestingly, and I know where we're going with this one, so I won't elaborate too much. Madonna joined them in 2005.
Oh, maybe because she needed a label after 2004.
Wonder why she needed a label after 2004. Carry on, Keith.
You ever heard of Jimmy Barnes?
I'm sure I've met someone called Jimmy Barnes, but I don't think that's who you're mentioning.
It's probably not who I'm mentioning. You have definitely at least heard Jimmy Barnes, but not really for what he's known for. There's an Australian podcast I listen to, and they've covered Jimmy Barnes before. Jimmy Barnes was born in Glasgow, moved to Australia, and became a rock star. But you will know him as the Screaming Cowboy.
Screaming Cowboy from
that dance song that kind of went viral like 3-4 years ago.
No way.
He's a big Australian rock star. He basically, I think he's from a band called Cold Chisel, and they were massive in Australia. They just never made it big outside of Australia. Whereas AC/DC got out of Australia. I think he might have like sung in the early days for AC/DC, but it went on to whoever it went on to, and then bloody whoever it is now.
Angus Young. Yeah.
I hate AC/DC. They can go fuck themselves. But
Whoa.
Jimmy Barnes.
Oh,
come on.
Can't be slagging off royalty like that.
The fucking blandest royalty ever. There should be no monarchies, Lav. Fuck the monarchies. That's all I'm saying. God, this episode is fire tonight. But just I saw the name Jimmy Barnes and I thought it'd be funny to bring him up because A, he was born in Glasgow, B, he is massive in Australia, and if you watch any interviews with him, he's just got this half Australian, half Scottish accent, and he was the Screaming Cowboy. I'm not going to try and repeat the Screaming Cowboy.
I'm glad neither of us have attempted it as much as I am tempted. I am not attempting it. No, there he goes. Tried it anyway.
I'm not going to do it. Yeah, so they were the labels that released Muse. Released 17th of July 2001, recorded between September 2000 and February 2001 in a number of locations. And it all makes sense. This album is, and I think it maybe is testament as to why I think 20 years later this still sounds incredible, because this album wasn't just done in a studio, it was constructed, it was built. These guys tried so many things in so many places to construct this album that there's 2 producers on this album, and it makes sense as to why there's 2 producers on this album.
I heard a rumour that Matt Bellamy would try placing the microphone it was either Matt Belling or the producer, would try placing the microphone in different places, and in one of these studios, it got placed in the mouth of a bear.
I cannot confirm or deny that.
Oh, just one of those stupid little things that you kind of must have picked up on a documentary at some point. But yeah, he would apparently try placing the microphone in various places, and one of those places was like a stuffed bear, and it had a microphone in its mouth.
One thing I didn't, and I'm pretty disappointed in myself that I just didn't have the time to do so. Hullabaloo was a live album that they released after this, and it covers a lot of the making of this album, or a lot of just them in the studio in general. And I didn't have time to watch it, unfortunately. I've seen it, and again, back to my friend Dave and I, we used to watch it all the time and like loved it, and we'd just be like, "This is amazing." Yeah, maybe that's from Hullabaloo. You'll see the microphone in this bear's mouth or not, but I don't know. But some of the places this was recorded was Ridge Farm in Rusper, Real World in Wiltshire, the Astoria, which is... Oh, why do I not have this in front of me?
The Astoria as in the venue?
No, as in David Gilmour's houseboat studio.
David Gilmour's studio?
David Gilmour's studio. So David Gilmour...
There's some rock royalty for you.
Yeah, it's coming up. David Gilmour bought a canal boat. Quite an important canal boat, if I remember correctly. The Astoria is a grand houseboat built in 1911 for impresario Fred Carno, and then was adapted into a recording studio in the 80s by David Gilmour from Pink Floyd. I don't know who Fred Carno is. The best English theatre. I don't know what an impresario is.
Never heard of it. Not something I'm aware of.
I really set myself up for a fall there. Yeah, so they recorded part of this on a houseboat, also including Abbey Road.
Famous.
Very famous. As well as Sawmills in Foley and St Mary's Church in Bathwick.
Lovely.
So
quite the journey that this recording went on then.
Right, so we've been listening to... Basically, nearly every album we've listened to so far was recorded in one fucking studio. NRG. In California. Studios. And these guys went through 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 different locations to record this 51-minute album.
That's brilliant. And I must say, like, every song is its own little world. Each song stands alone. I think my first response to you after I'd listened to it the first time was like, this is just all killer and no filler. This is great. Mm-hmm. And it wasn't until listening to it the second and third time I was like, oh no, wait, yeah, there's skippable moments here and there.
A couple of bits.
But yeah, I was pleasantly surprised at how engaging an album it is.
I think it gets you from the start, and everyone knows Newborn being the first song, but that piano, when it starts up, and then the bass line comes in, and then you're just like, ooh, where's this going? And then it just hits that riff. You're in. Like, that's you, man. Like, down the rabbit hole. See you later, Alice. Let's do this. It's I think it's really engaging. I mentioned earlier there's two producers. Muse are credited as producers as well, but there's two producers of David Bottrill and John Leckie. So I think I said there's two producers, and you can understand why these two producers are sort of there. So before I go into what songs they've done, you've got David Bottrill, who has worked with the likes of Tool, Mudvayne, Coheed and Cambria, and Between the Buried and Me.
Wow. Foreshadowing.
Some absolute fucking out the park metal from David Bottrill.
Okay.
John Leckie has worked with the likes of John Lennon and Paul McCartney, Pink Floyd, Stone Roses, New Order, and the Doves.
So that's got that proggy 70s rock feel to it then.
Starting to see how this album's built. So, David Bottrill being the more metal producer, shall we say, and produced and engineered on Newborn, Bliss, Plug-in Baby, and Dark Shines. John Leckie, the proggier sort of space rock kind of guy. Produced on Space Dementia, Hypermusic, Citizen Erased, Microcuts, Screenager, Feeling Good, and Megalomania.
Wow, very good. So yeah, that they're definitely one of the spacier tracks, I would say.
It's like they brought in a metal producer or a heavier rock, what have you, producer to handle the heavier songs, and the more acid rock, space rock, kind of progressive guy to work on those songs. So it even comes back to what we were saying about End Together Now for Limp Bizkit, how they brought in that hip hop DJ to produce End Together Now.
Yeah. So it's all coming together nicely. That's interesting that they've gone down that route. I think that's really something. This isn't their first album. This was their second album, wasn't it?
Yeah, their first album was released in 1999 called Showbiz.
Showbiz. Did you ever listen to Showbiz?
Yeah, and I hated it.
Who did it remind you of?
Are you going to go with Cole? Are you going to go with Radiohead on this?
Radiohead's the one that I keep coming across these comparisons that Muse were being compared to Radiohead in the 90s. And to my experience, Muse were basically Origin of Symmetry onwards, where they were this sort of slightly experimental, a little bit weird space rock prog band, and people kept saying, oh, they just sound like Radiohead. I was like, what? When? In what universe do they sound like Radiohead? And it's then you go back an album and you go, wow, that was bland.
Well, I have never heard Radiohead in that case, because I don't think Muse do sound like Radiohead. I'm not a massive fan of Radiohead either, but I don't, from what I have heard of Radiohead, I don't think that really crosses over into Muse. Even taking Showbiz, I did sort of, in the sort of later years of appreciating Muse, go back to Showbiz and found songs I liked. Basically, just don't listen to Muscle Museum because it's incredibly depressing and slow and boring and crap. But
sounds like a Radiohead album.
Well, maybe there are similarities there that we don't know. But you can listen to songs like Philip or Cave or Uno. These are really good songs on Showbiz. And I think there's a formula on the rockier songs on Origin of Symmetry, and that is smash an intro, just into your face intro, kind of drop it into the chorus with like a really sort of driving, interesting, unique bass line. Another reason why I loved Muse so much, because by this point I'd picked up a bass and I was really getting into what it was that they were doing, and I was trying to learn lots of Muse songs, and then come back into the bigger choruses for Bellamy to show off. I think that's a formula that's in Origin Symmetry, and you can see it on some of those songs in Showbiz.
Definitely being in a three-piece lends itself to having a more prominent bass, I find.
I think he's a great bass
guitarist. Yeah, he's well placed and well positioned, and I think it features well when you've got someone like Matt Bellamy, who's got that very falsetto, very high-pitched voice, to have a very prominent bass guitar to get that dynamic range. And I think it fits them well, and it makes them sound very unique. No doubt in earlier stuff they probably were borrowing off artists of the time, but by Origin of Symmetry, I think they really found their sound.
Yeah,
of their good stuff. I can't speak for anything post 2009, but between this and Origin of Symmetry, you knew you were listening to a Muse song. You knew it was a Muse song that was on the radio or wherever you'd listen to it, without doubt, because they just were there. They made space rock, I don't know what you'd call it, their thing.
Space operas. Yeah. No, I couldn't agree more. I think you absolutely knew you were listening to Muse anytime between 2000 and 2009. Like that three-piece sound that they had, and not just that three-piece sound. I think they put a lot of production into their music as well, and fair enough, because as well as an incredibly talented guitarist, Matt Bellamy is an incredibly talented pianist. There's hundreds of videos all over the internet of him playing this piano or that piano or an organ, or he's doing something here, or he's fucking around, like, and you can hear it, like, oh, what was the bloody hell, what was the song between, not Between Angels and Insects, fuck's sake, Keith, it was Butterflies and something, it was Butterflies and Hurricanes on Absolution. There's a massive, huge sweeping piano part in that song, and it's pretty impressive.
That's cool. Yeah, I think it always speaks in volumes when you've got a musician, an actual musician. I would never call myself a musician. I can pick up a guitar, I can play some power chords. I played in a hardcore punk band, so I can't play fuck all really. You're a bass player, so we can't really call ourselves musicians.
What is that supposed to mean? Could you be any more condescending, cunt? Jesus Christ. You
just said the C word, mate. I won.
I think that was deserved, thank you very much. You played in a hardcore punk band. What did you do? Just bleed on the strings?
Basically. I was being self-deprecating to myself, and I just thought I'd bring you down to my level. Anyway.
I do not appreciate it.
I noticed.
It
was fun, though.
Yeah, fuck, where were we? In fairness, we're talking about how like they constructed it looks like they constructed the album, recorded in many places. Part of that was to have access to a massive organ. That was in a church.
That's what she said.
That is what she said.
Sorry, I couldn't help myself.
No, absolutely, man. The maybe this is on every album and we've just not seen it credited. I don't know, but they engineered the fuck out of this album. So you've got.
So how? I mean, engineered makes it sound, like planned construction.
Okay.
Whereas then you've got, because you can also get albums that get ripped to shreds by over engineering, over complicating it. I have to say they've kept it really simple. Is not the word. It still feels like a straightforward album. There's no silly like big distractions on it where there's not like these big 8-minute long drum solos or things like that. It's quite focused. I mean, it's a 50-minute album, but it's 12 tracks, 55 minutes.
11
it keeps itself, for a progressive rock album, it keeps itself quite tight and controlled.
To the point, almost.
Yeah, and for all the right reasons.
Well, I say it's engineered to fuck. I only reference that. I don't know if it was specifically engineered to fuck. I'm just referring to the fact there is 1, 2, 3 engineers credited, 1, 2, 2 assistant engineers credited, and 4 assistant engineers credited.
A lot of credits. There is more additional personnel than there were in the band.
100%. And I don't think it sounds like an overly produced album. I think that's just credit, because not everyone's on all the songs. People are across the album. I just think that goes to the depth of where they went to make the album. So on that,
how did the album perform then with all that?
Okay, before we go to that.
Oh, sorry.
Sorry, before we go to that, Muse developed Origin of Symmetry during their tour for their debut album Showbiz. Recording took place in a number of locations, which we've already gone over. Songs like Newborn, Plug-in Baby and Bliss were recorded with producer Bottrill during the middle of touring in late 2000. That was in West Sussex at Ridge Farm Studios. The songs were recorded in just a few days, so the band later had to remaster these songs with the help of John Cornfield. That was the third engineer I mentioned. That was like a full engineer, not just like an assistant engineer or whatever, after they finished the Showbiz tour. So there's your rockier songs recorded with Bottrill, and they basically did them before they finished the tour.
Yeah, wow. That's cool. That's cool. Writing an album like that on tour is not to be sniffed at.
Absolutely not. The album then saw the band experimenting with new instruments and dynamics. Dom Howard experimented expanded, the standard rock drum kit with various other items of his own, including a balafone and even animal bones on the song Screenager. My bestie, Dave, we were talking about this album earlier, and he told me, I think it's on the Hullabaloo DVD, they originally wanted to use human bones, but the label were like, that's not good press, man. You can't, that's not good for human rights.
That doesn't go down well.
So
that's never human rights. That's just not the done thing.
Yeah,
like,
so they did.
Unless you got the permission of the person whose bones it was to do that with.
True.
That's a no-go.
Do you think the again? I think that's on Hullabaloo, but I could be wrong. Do you think that would affect the use of animal bones? Do you think that would affect vegans listening to this?
I'm not sure. That's probably a question you should ask a vegan.
Probably a leading question, no doubt. But Matt Bellamy also used an organ at the St Mary and Virgin's Church, Bathwick, to record Megalomania. So they went to a church to record that.
Oh. Okay. So because if he's playing the organ, they wanted that proper church organ sort of vibe about it, I'm guessing.
Yeah, and I suppose you just don't really get those acoustics anywhere else.
Yeah, totally.
But
that's awesome.
How did it perform? Pretty...
Yeah. Sorry, I cut you into that one a bit earlier.
No, all good. It did well. I mean, it's a UK band releasing in the UK. You're not going to get like your American numbers. You're not going to get your. It's unlikely to get your Chocolate Starfish 8 times platinum sort of figures. It did enter the UK chart in number 3.
That's respectable at that time.
Absolutely, they Radiohead rip-off or not, they clearly had a following, and people bought into this album. I think when you're leading with a song like Plug-in Baby, you're probably gonna attract a few people. It eventually charted in the US because there's a bit of controversy about its US release at 161 on the 200 Billboard chart, but it peaked at 161 in February of 2010. Wow. Yep.
So that was obviously after Muse had basically blown up and been the biggest rock band in the mid 2000s practically. They're a stadium rock band now. You're not going to see them at the bars. You're not going to see them do your small local venues. You're going to see them at a festival. You might be lucky if they do like a 5-night run at the Hydro or something.
Yeah, absolutely.
They're not going to be one you see live. And it kind of goes back to, so you've alluded to that it didn't get a US release.
Origin of Symmetry, it was originally scheduled for release in the United States through Maverick Records. We've heard of Maverick through Deftones. Maverick were the guys that made Deftones do Back to School. Yeah. So listen to this shit. Because Maverick had released Showbiz. However, Muse left Maverick when Maverick demanded, quote, Bellamy recorded the album with less falsetto. The album was not released in the US until 2005, so it wasn't released until 4 years later, and only in 2010 did it peak at 161.
Maverick, so the reason I brought up Madonna being part of Mushroom Records?
Mm-hmm.
So Maverick was founded by Madonna.
Yes.
And they fell out in 2004, and Madonna basically sold her shares in it to get away from it. So I found that quite interesting that she's been on Maverick. They've been mismanaged, bad bookkeeping, whatever it is. She's gone to Mushroom, and then by 2010, 2009, both labels fall into Warner ownership anyway.
The Mushroom fell into Warner. Yeah, interesting that's 2 albums almost in a row where we've discussed Maverick, and they kind of seem to be cunts.
They don't seem to be the nice guys in this.
No.
They were a record company. They were out to make money, but really they obviously turned the screws a little bit with Deftones asking them to create a new version of a song and then putting it out really to their compromise. Someone like Muse, they clearly felt that they were in a stronger position to say no.
Well, Not even. It's one thing to ask a band to, oh, can you rework a song so we can release a single? It's another thing to be like, see this entire album that you've recorded with this falsetto singing, bin it and redo it for us. Of course they were going to say no. What an entirely unreasonable request.
It's given me a newfound respect for Muse learning about that, actually. That's given me a thing, because it any band that's as popular as Muse became, I always think that they must have compromised in other ways, but from what I can tell, it's they've done what they wanted to do, and it's worked perfectly well for them.
I think they've done all right, considering, we were talking earlier about how they did a live stage show with sort of what was essentially a conspiracy theory at the heart of the concept of the show. Either they're just totally trolling their record labels, or they're that well received that they can actually almost maybe do what they want, possibly.
Yeah, that's good. I mean, and then obviously to their detriment, Origin of Symmetry got delayed in the US for a few years, but by the time it did hit the US, they'd had smashes with, like you say, Absolution. That's got some of their material. By that, then you've got,
they did.
I don't know the name of the albums, Black Holes and Revelations, and then The Resistance 2009, and then it hits 161 in the top US Billboard 200 9 years after it was made. That's brilliant. That's good for them. Good for them.
So I've just brought up their chart history for the Billboards. The Resistance peaked at number 3 in 2009. The Second Law, wherever the fuck that album was, peaked at number 2 in 2012. Black Hole Revelations was at number 9 in 2006. Absolution didn't do great. Drones went in at number 1 in 2015.
Wow.
So, Muse did all right in America. They clearly went over there, regardless of whatever issues they had with Origin Symmetry. They went number 1, so they've done something right.
Something I'm going to pick up on that you've not mentioned.
Mm-hmm.
In the charts, it charted in Scotland
at number 3, baby.
Yeah,
fuck yeah!
Got those Scottish charts back involved.
Scottish charts number 3, UK album charts number 3. The German album charts at number 17. So it went 2 times platinum in the UK with 600,000 sales. In Australia, because we're looking for those Australian listeners with Jimmy Barnes, it went platinum at 70,000 sales. And Belgium, Italy, Netherlands, and Switzerland, it went gold with more than 20,000 sales.
Strong numbers. Really good. Really good.
So, wow. We've been talking for a bit already, man. This is flying by. Do I have much more to say on Muse? Origin Symmetry was remastered and reissued as part of the Origin of Muse box set, alongside showbiz demos, live performances, and other material. The box set was released on the 6th of December 2019.
Okay.
So, interesting that they've already sort of done a bit of a remaster, but now we've got the Citizen Erased 20th anniversary remaster, so it's going to be interesting to see what comes from that.
Yeah, I've not heard the full album yet. I'm looking forward to hearing the remaster in full. I think that might be an interesting time to listen to it. If you've not listened to Muse before, or if you've been kind of on the fence with it, this could be your gateway in.
Mm-hmm. What were your what's we touched on some brief highlights earlier. What are you taking from this album? You said you might sort of put this into circulation. You might actually start listening to this. What's brought you into it?
I suppose there is a place in my heart for prog. I've come to learn that there's prog rock somehow just ticks a box in my head. I'm like, I can get into that.
I am going to replay this sound clip when I make you listen to Dream Theater.
But steady on now. We don't want to don't get too ahead of ourselves here. I enjoy this. I loved the pacing from basically from track 1 to 6 was brilliant. I was without even blinking. I was from the intro to Newborn, and then I'm into Citizen Erased, and I'm like this. That first half of the album just flew in. I'm like, I'm really enjoying this. There's a dip. There's about 3 tracks of maybe what I would I describe it as filler, or maybe just describe it as a little bit meh. Less so from where all the energy that's been built through, and then you get that big sound, that, like you said, that big A string on Citizen Erased, and then you just get like Microcut, Screenager, and Dark Shines, and they're just a little bit like bit blasé, by the numbers tracks. And I realised while I was listening to the album one time, I'd completely tuned out for those 3 tracks. It wasn't until Feeling Good kicks in.
Yep.
My word, Feeling Good is...
It's
not a Muse song. It's just, there's something in that song that can wake me up in the morning. If I am sure of it, there's a note or there's a progression in that song which just absolutely fills me up with energy. It's so good. It's not even their song. It's a fucking stage song. It was written for like a musical or something, and it's been covered by so many people.
Feeling Good, a cover, was written for Broadway by Anthony Newley and Leslie Bricusse in 1964, and first recorded by Nina Simone for her 1965 album I Put a Spell on You. Everyone knows some version of Feeling Good, and I think this is 100% to Muse's credit, and this is where I think if you're going to do a cover, this is where you do it justice. You make it your cover.
Oh, fully.
Like,
I would challenge when I'd not heard the Nina Simone version.
Oh wow, really?
First time I ever heard Feeling Good was Muse doing it.
Wow.
And it wasn't until later on that I realised that it's a cover from a song from the 60s, and then it's not until reading further into like it was actually a song from Broadway that Nina Simone covered, and it's just one of those songs. But I think Muse
Whiskey in the Jar
completely owned it. They completely owned it. What was that? Sorry?
Yeah, like Whiskey in the Jar, for example, wasn't just a Thin Lizzy song.
It was a folk song. It's credited as traditional. It doesn't have a named writer, so that when the performance comes in, each artist makes it their own. Thin Lizzy popularized it. Metallica metalized it.
Kind of.
They rocked it up. They added a bass line. Thin Lizzy didn't even have a bass line in it. So they made it something.
Yeah,
it's good.
They do just make Feeling Good their own, and it's in keeping with the album. You know, you've got this sort of heavy rock, spaced out thing. You know, you've got moments on sort of Plug In Baby and Bliss and whatever, and then you've got sort of Dark Shines and micro cuts, and even Megalomania with the organ, and somehow a cover of Feeling Good works between that.
It just fits. And now I've only listened to what I can see from reading Wikipedia, the digital version. So when I've been listening to it, it ends on Futurism.
Yeah, that wasn't the original album.
Yeah. Now Futurism, to me, it has that the very beginning of it is like the cymbals, and it always reminds me of the bells at the beginning of Rush, YYZ, which is I sent you. It's just that ding, 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 and I just expected to go da 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 da, and it doesn't. It goes into their own song. But to me, Futurism was on there, and it was just I liked that ending of it flowing into Futurism, and to think of it as a bonus track, it's like, oh, that would have fit on the album. Yet you kept Screenager. Like, you decided to cut one and make it a digital only version, but keep a really crap one. What a shame.
Yeah, I kind of couldn't agree with you more. Like, you can, without even skipping a beat, you can be from the very first piano of Newborn into Crying Your Eyes Out and Citizen Erased, and then the album sort of takes a turn. Given what I think they've tried to do with it, and given the work that I think they've put into it, and maybe I'm just being really kind here, I think it's just a bit of a swing and a miss on some of these songs. They've tried something. They've always wanted to be experimental. They've always wanted to do different things, and Dark Shines and whatever. Do that. Micro Cuts is a weird one because I really don't like the first 3 minutes of it, but then that outro is just madness, and it's great. And Muse do that. They also, after this, with the release of Hullabaloo, they also released two songs, one called Dead Star and one called In Your World. Both really great, different songs. Dead Star is almost a gent song. It's crazy. Right, then you've got Futurism as well. I like Futurism, but the verses are weird, but the chorus is awesome for me personally.
Yeah, the whole, like I say, as a whole package, really impressed with the album. One I will listen to again, hands down.
I might come back to this actually. It's sort of been long enough that it's difficult. Did I say this at the beginning? Did I not say this at the beginning? Coming back to Origin of Symmetry just sort of reminds me of sort of how disappointed I was with where Muse went.
Right. Okay. Fair enough.
And they've gone off and done their own thing, and I don't think it's a sellout move. I don't think it's whatever. They've just kind of always done what they wanted to do, I think. But I did say this earlier because I made the Anakin and Padme joke. They just went a place that I couldn't really or didn't want to follow them. But that doesn't mean that Origin of Symmetry and Absolution, and to almost a lesser extent Black Holes and Revelations, aren't really good albums. And I'll always sort of stick with that.
Good. Oh, thank you for taking me and our listeners through that journey.
I tell you what, one time I've seen Muse 3 times, and one
wow.
time was with My Chemical Romance.
Really?
Yeah.
Not a band I'd ever associate. I hope supporting Muse.
Yeah, no, they were supporting. So first time I saw them was 24th of November 2003 at the SECC. I remember that because I passed my driving test on the 23rd of November 2003. So I saw Muse a day after, but I didn't drive to the gig.
Oh, well.
The next time I saw them was like 6 months later at Tea in the Park, and they did the NME stage and they played Citizen Erased, and I cried. I fucking cried. It was so beautiful. If I've not already said it, Citizen Erased is by far my favourite song on the album, and probably my favourite Muse song, next to Hysteria. And then it was 2 years later at Tea in the Fringe. Tea in the Park and the Fringe sort of teamed up for a couple of years. And that's and they built a stage at Meadowbank Stadium.
Oh yes, I remember that.
I do remember that. Where on this night, Muse were the headliner and MCR were the support.
That's brilliant. I couldn't put that together. That's amazing that they the sound of 2005, 2004 MCR,
mm-hmm.
an emo punk rock band, an emo pop punk band. If you're gonna be,
I think they were. I think they were pretty good at the time. To be fair, I just remember. I remember there being like a long gangplank walkway from the stage back to what must have been like the Meadowbank Stadium, and everyone's like, it's getting to the time, everyone's waiting for Muse to come on and stuff like that, and I'm just like, by this point I was getting a bit cocky, like I'm in bands, I've played shows, I know how this stuff works, everyone's got a timesheet and stuff like that, and I was like, they're going to be on a Corp, yeah, they've finished at that, and then you got a 20-minute crossover, they're going to change, blah blah, and I'm patting myself in the back here, but I was just like, oh yeah, they're going to come on at 9 o'clock, and at about 2 minutes to 9 I just looked to my right, and you just saw them walking down the gangplank. They were just there. You couldn't hide them. That was the access to the stage, and they were just there. And I was like, Muse are about to play. Yes. And that was the last time I ever saw them.
Would you go and see them again?
Maybe if they toured and played played Origin of Symmetry from from the start to the end. They did that for a 10th anniversary, actually. They did a couple of shows for the 10th anniversary, but I wouldn't give a fuck about their new material, to be fair.
True. Fair enough. No, it's been good. I really enjoyed listening to the album, and I can see how someone can enjoy Muse. But looking at their Spotify-related artists, it tells me everything that I need to know about the type of person who listens to Muse in 2021. And I mean that with all the love and sincerity, that the type of person who listens to Muse today very much listens to bands like Interpol, Coldplay, Kaiser Chiefs, Kasabian, Placebo. So yeah, that is not a slight by any means, but it's not the music that I would usually go out of my way to listen to. But listening to Origin of Symmetry has made me think that this is a band I could, or at least an album I could listen to comfortably on an afternoon at work and just put it on and enjoy it.
Yeah, almost, I suppose on that, almost similarly to Deftones. You know, Deftones were lumped in with the new metal sort of shtick. Yeah. And I think just because of the timing of their releases, Muse were put into, you know, what was Brit rock. But you listen to Origin of Symmetry, and are they fuck Brit rock? They piss on Brit rock like from fucking wherever. Like, they're space rock and prog and fucking doing all these different things, whereas your Kaiser Chiefs and your Kasabian were just radio garbage. Like, it was just absolute fodder. But I think Muse were not that band, not that kind of band. Maybe they are now, if I'm going to be brutal about it. But
maybe.
Yeah. So maybe a similar sort of vibe there. But hey,
cool.
That's been Origin of Symmetry. Thanks for listening. I'm glad you enjoyed it. I'm really glad you enjoyed it, actually, because I didn't. You're sort of at the beginning. You were like, I remember sort of. I could listen to Linkin Park and then try and put on Muse, and people be like, "Why the fuck are you putting on Muse?" I'm like, "Cause it's good." But
it's a bit of a leap. You've got to mix. You've got to mix your way in, and it's for that mixing reason that I am not going. I had an album in mind to do next, and I didn't. I was a bit uncertain about it. I thought, we're diverging here. We're going in two different directions. But it reminded me of another band. You've mentioned Brit rock. Sorry, the next album is going to be a bit of a Brit rock album.
Oh, where are we going? Is it Kaiser Chiefs? Is it Kasabian? Is it Franz Ferdinand?
No, it's not. It's not none of those. It is a British band. They are called Bush, and they made an album called Golden State. And
fucking hell, has that at least got Swallow on it?
No. Oh, I would challenge you to listen to Swallow. I really want it to be Razorblade Suitcase. So basically, we're going to have a discussion about it. I want to talk about this. This was one of those albums. It was there. It existed. It was an early album for me to listen to. So listening to Muse has reminded me that I'll also listen to some not new metal at the time. This is one of them. I'd love to have you listen to it and have a nice open conversation about it.
So this was an album you loved growing up, and now you're going to make me listen to it. I can only name one Bush song. It's Swallowed. Swallowed. Whatever.
We'll talk about it next time.
Great. Can't wait. Am I taking us home?
Don't sound too down about it.
No, I am going in with open arms. Unlike Deftones, where I know I didn't like Deftones, I don't know if I do or don't like Bush. I've never listened to them. Gavin Rossdale, Gwen Stefani. That's all I know.
I'm looking forward to the inevitable message of, oh, here we go. But I look forward to talking with you about it in this situation again. But that's mine for next time. So, do you want to take us home?
I'll take us home. Thanks everyone for listening. This has been Alive or Just Blethering. Head over to our Instagram and Twitter at AOGB Podcast. I fucked that. AOJB Podcast. give us some tweets, give us some twats, give us some feedbacks. Tell us what you thought of Muse Origin of Symmetry. Tell us what you thought of Citizen Erased 20th anniversary re-release. And say hi. Drop us a line. Next time on Alive or Just Blethering, Lav will be taking us through Golden State by Bush. Good fight, good night.
Good night.